Hello and welcome. Today we've got Decode, and we are going to be discussing WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook and why we can't access it. Now, just before we begin, you can subscribe to our Telegram channels and to nicholasveniamin.com for my free email updates. And if you're watching this for the first time on YouTube, I will leave the link below in the description for the full interview, unless, of course, myself and Gene can use our words wisely to avoid the censorship, as it's so bad right now. Gene, thank you for joining me. How are you, and what have you been up to?
Oh, I've been having a week vacation. First time in 2 years I've been able to get out in the mountains and go hiking with the Magellan's Direct and that stuff. It's literally put the nail in the Magellan's coffin. So it's the potassium iodide's amazing. And it's really helped my health, not just with that, but, lost weight and really feel great and sleeping well, actually better than I've slept in a decade, where I go to bed and I don't have to get up all times of the night. It helps reboot the endocrine system, even is dealing with, I'm older, so prostrate issues are no longer seeming to be as issuey as they used to be. Issuey. I sound like somebody that's a president for the U.S., don't I? Make up words as we go.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling great. You sound great. It's good to have you back. It's been a while since we've done an interview together. But I just want to let the viewers know that, you're on every month now, which is great with me. So what's the situation right now with social media, all the platforms that are associated with Facebook, Instagram and what's the other one? WhatsApp. It's all going down, and no one can access, no one can send messages or videos or anything like that. What's the war behind it? What's really going on behind the scenes right now?
Well, freedom of speech, of course, it's one of the very first amendments in the U.S. Constitution, if not the first, just in hand. Okay, so anyway, they don't want us to spread the truth, and they don't want information out there. And they purposely make up buzzwords and teach us how to reiterate buzzwords so that it squelches truth, like conspiracy theory, that kind of thing, so that when we talk, we censor each other so that you can't get truth out there. And they are going after social media for that reason, as it's a powerful vehicle, an alternative media that we have to use, because the mainstream media, the Project Mockingbird stuff, is so blatantly obvious now. I mean, when I woke up 30 years ago, it wasn't as amazingly, incredibly, blatantly obvious. And so now with the mainstream stuff we see, it's so satanic and so blatantly obviously so that people who are even kind of sort of awake are seeing it. And so they're going to their social media, and so they're trying to plug up the holes in their sinking ship.
So why? But don't you think it's a bit too late? I mean, we've had so much, people sharing around. There's so much censorship. We know that, but information has been, going left, right, and center. Why have they thought of doing this right now? Why not before? Or do you think maybe there was some other type of information that was going to be released that they knew that they needed to censor?
Well, the main thing is right now, because they're in full operation for their Agenda 21, Agenda 30 stuff, via Georgia Guidestone's directives. So they're trying to make sure that information doesn't get out and in the way, the truth, what's in there and what it does, get in the way of their agenda, because the G oxide stuff actually can link you up to the internet. And it's part of the transhumanism agenda. Those that survive it can survive that. It's to create a completely controlled population worldwide, so that they have this, like I've done on before with you on the John Hopkins document that I went through before on SPARS pandemic. It's to create isolated communities that are only connected by the internet. Well, the connection they want by the internet is total control through that total control of the G oxide stuff. So that stuff in there with 5G and other things can massively be orchestrated so that it, not only penetrates the blood-brain barrier, but can rewire you and coordinate you and link you, and they can literally control everything through that. And that's why it's so important now to get the things like I was mentioning, and I'm in contact with them often, things that are powerful that your body can use to destroy the Morgellons type stuff, like Morgellons Direct, and they're getting their orders for overseas, like in your area, Nicholas, and for Australia, they should be up by Tuesday and Thursdays, somewhere in there to get that out because there's such a demand. Other powerful oxidizers such as glutathione, astaxanthin, I can't pronounce astaxanthin, and NAC, and acetylcholine. All of these oxidizers are now so important to get in your diet as a regular thing. And then Jim Humble's protocols, most powerful oxidizer I know of. And that was heralded by NASA a few years ago as a panacea. And now they're attacking it so massively because, again, same reason for the social media attack. They are looking to plug a hole because this is their final card. It's like Nick 107 said, we're playing Casino Royale for the entire Earth. Well, they're down to the last card. This is their last ace. We have the rest of the deck. So they have to play this card. If they lose this card in this play, it's like, you're down to the last few moves in the chess game and you're moving the big pieces, the queens and the rooks and the powerful pieces trying to get each other in check. And most of the board's cleared. So that's where we're at, where they have most of their board cleared. We have a lot of our key pieces in key places. They have one piece that's creating havoc, and that's the piece. So they're trying to plug the holes so that we can't get people to know the truth about the G oxide and the spike protein, all of these different items that are in there, because this is their agenda to be able to get everything under their control.
So why is it they haven't done that to YouTube? YouTube, we can still upload videos, we can still access and play videos. And we know that YouTube and Google are the same people. So why do you think that hasn't been stopped today?
Well, there's partly because they use it for their own cons. They use videos that seem ridiculous or nonsense. There are actually a lot of them. If you go into like pig videos of pigs and things like that, they do these videos that seem nonsensical, or children's videos, different things, cartoon videos, that kind of stuff. There are comms between them. It's a way for them to communicate, like they do gaming platforms, the same thing. It's a way they use to communicate. So they're using that across the globe, transglobally, to communicate within their own network through symbols and the things that they always do. They love their symbols, as we all know. And they use a massive network. I did a Q&A, for example, a couple of weeks ago, and I went through some of the code speak that they use. So they use code words, code signals, code hand signs, everything. And so that's one of their platforms that they use. It's readily and easily accessible. Like they'll take out an advertisement, or they'll put something up on a website like Craigslist or something. It'll be an advertisement. It's actually, sometimes you look at some of the prices and some of the things, it doesn't make sense because it's code. They're using code to speak to each other. So that's part of also the reason. And so they're trying to keep that area open as well so that they can communicate within their network worldwide to all their minions and their lower operatives. The upper operatives have, inside control systems, but the minions need to be manipulated and done, steered to what they need to do.
Absolutely. I mean, I interviewed April Moss from CBS just last week, and she was just telling me how they are so brainwashed where she worked. And, that's what they do. They hire people who are easily manipulated so they can fulfill their agenda. So how do you fit in all of this now with the white hat operation, if you like, with how many moves do we have left? Where are we exactly? If you could paint the picture of what's happening, where we're at, and what you think or what we're expected to see in the next coming months.
Yeah, it's hard because, there's, for both sides, there's been big losses. On the white hat side, there's people they expected to step up to the plate and didn't, so that the return of the republic didn't happen as this time as it was supposed to, because certain big individuals, and I've done these on interviews before, some generals and certain individuals did not actually defected to the cabal and became into the cabal themselves. And so that's how the cabal works, is they infiltrate and they flip people through different means of blackmail or threats to their family, et cetera, like that. So it's a technique, and both sides have had a lot of big losses. So it's a very sophisticated and complicated and high-level chess game at multiple levels, densities, dimensions, and even involving time movements and time. And it's actually mostly a corporeal, temporal war.
Right. If I could kindly ask you, what's happening with the recounts? And if you could be, just to remind you to be careful with your words.
Yeah, that's already pretty much done. It's, again, that they're trying to control the flow of the information of what has been done. If, some of the big meetings, like I met with Dr. Northrup a couple of weeks ago in person, it was so amazing. She's such an incredible person. And we were talking about it, and she was at a conference in my general location, and she went into, it's pretty blatant. They've shown everything. They've got everything. They're showing exactly what has already occurred. And it's, now to whether we can wake up to that as well as to what's in the job, because, and that's why they're plugging up the social media, because if you look all over the world, I mean, you have them in London, you have them in Italy, you have them all over Australia, you have these huge protests in public, and the mainstream media acts like, oh, there's a few, people. It's not a few, it's massive. So they're trying to cover it up, and, you have roadblocks and all kinds of things going up. And it's what we have to do in order to wake up everybody as much as possible, because this is their time for when they wanted to do their final card to enslave the entire earth. So we either stand up, and as individuals together, we protect each other, we come together, we help each other, and be kind, considerate, and respectful to each other, and not attack each other, because that's what the cabal wants. Or we fall independently, one by one, or in groups and small groups. We need to stand together worldwide. It doesn't matter what country, what religion, whatever. We can't allow them to do divide and conquer anymore. It'll be like my favorite story of the truth of how this works during the beginning in 1930s with Hitler. And he said that they first came for the Jewish people to take them to the camps, and he didn't do any or say anything because he wasn't Jewish. Then they came for Christians. He didn't do anything because he's not Christian. They came for the Labor Party. He wasn't in the Labor Party, so he didn't do anything. They came for him. There was nobody to do or say anything. And that's exactly where we are now. We need to do and say everything we can, but make sure you do it, respectfully, so you're not getting somebody upset, so that later, should they want information that you have, they are not going to come to you because you upset them. You want to do it lovingly and gently, and, point it out to them that, like Dr. Northrup and Dr., artists and all of these people have lost their entire livelihoods. They have nothing to gain. So what do I have to gain by telling you the truth? By telling you what do I have to gain by telling you what I'm telling you? Am I making, fame and fortune all over the earth? And, each of us as individuals talk to people in private and in small groups in public, and those, if you look at the mainstream, of course, you can see what they have to gain. It's total world domination, total control, all interconnected and interneted throughout everything. So it's, to show gently, but, to show the truth and say, if it were true, isn't it worth your time to find out if it were true, if it literally means your life, your children's life? It means, for example, the stuff that's in the thing that goes in the arm can cause sterility. That means your children, you won't have grandchildren. Your children won't have grandchildren. I mean, isn't this something worthwhile to find out what's in it? If you're being told you have to do that at work, isn't it worth saying, my safety work method statement requires you to show me, okay, you want me to get that, but it requires me to see the safety data sheet. So can you show me the safety data? I mean, how hard is this? It's not that hard. Show me the safety data sheet for whatever one of these you're telling me to get, or all of them, whatever ones you're going to say I have to do. Show me that. And then also, as a Christian, say that, especially in the US, we have an amendment that says we have the right to freedom of speech, as well as we have the right to our religious beliefs, and that I don't agree to these ingredients in this SDS or in this that have things like human aborted fetal tissue, and that it's against my staunch religious beliefs. You can't mandate me to have something put in me that changes my God-given immune system. It alters me as who I am, created by God. You cannot do that. That's a right in almost the majority of countries on earth. They cannot mandate and violate that. So it's learning to stand up and what to say and how to say it.
Now, you're speaking in regards to the liquid that the healthcare wants to insert in our arm. Now, can it be reversed for those who have taken the liquid?
Yes, quite a lot. The majority of the damage can be, the quicker, of course, the longer the damage goes, especially the mRNA creating changes in the genetic structure, the longer it's going to take to repair that damage. So the quicker a person acts, the better off they are. And, once sterility occurs, then more than likely, I'm not a medical doctor on that, but that would be extremely hard to reverse. That's why it's important to do it quickly. So Jim Humble's protocols, all the protocols that the Blessed for Service team sends out all over the world, be soon on a website. People can go get those for free. Those things, the sooner you can get to them, the better off it is. The Morgellons Direct, for example, the potassium iodide in that, it helps your immune system. It reboots your immune system, your endocrine system, your hormones. And by doing that, it allows, for example, the G oxide stuff and that forms into fibers and all kinds of things. And I'll show some videos on that. It allows your immune system to strip and tear them back down and tear them apart. They're created of heavy metals and the G oxide stuff and strontium, and they use liquid red mercury with certain other compounds, strontium and other nuclear metals as they're in, like our blood, so to speak. And so it allows, and they have an outer keratin layer mixed with heavy metals as well. So it's important also to get what I call the mud mix, with where you're taking, and daily you're taking 3 times a day. I do zeolite, which absorbs heavy metals, and you can use them in pets too. But when you get those, the ones that we recommend, it tells you exactly how to do that. It's really, really important to do that. I'm not a licensed medical professional. These are my understanding of my theories of how I work, but it's made my health return to what it was 10 years ago, more than 10. I'm healthy. I'm aching because I haven't been able to work out. Now I am. I'm like sore all the time. I'm using muscles I haven't used for a very long time. But it's, really makes a difference. So these are very important things to get and to learn. And the sooner the better to get these protocols. And then, of course, for me as a Christian, it means to get the final protocol, which means to go to the feet of the cross. And that's paramount because many, many people, like my understanding goes into that this does have in it what equates to a system that links you up to the internet. And the internet itself is literally is linked to, as far as my understanding and my way of looking at it, the beast system.
Now, I was speaking to my father about what you're speaking about, the liquid, and he's a psychologist, and he says to me that whatever is in that liquid is able to receive messages from the 48 billion neurons we have from our brains, and it would be connected to the internet, and it will receive information of what we are thinking without even having to say it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've seen videos of couple now that have hacked one from Russia into the dark web and saw his friends that had the liquid in their arms already. And he could see that they were sleeping by their biorhythms and their brain scan. Could actually see the theta waves, the alpha waves, et cetera. The person was in REM sleep, could see that. It showed exactly their location. So it can download that. It can also upload that. That's the way the system works. And, the final goal, and I would, for those who are in cryptocurrency, I would say not to be, because of the fact that's the final goal. You become a mining system. So your activities, your social credit score, like in China, that's you mine cryptocurrency, get rid of all currency. You have only cryptocurrency. You have total control of the monetary system. And the Bitcoin itself was started in China, and they got over 52% control from the get-go, and they've maintained that. So all of those systems are used for massive human trafficking and all kinds of things. You're supporting the system. If you're using cryptocurrency, you're supporting the system they need to take over everything with. It's a big chunk of it. So to go back to what we used to use and not use these systems, because those are the systems that if they can control that all, including us, through the internet and through all of the system, the interconnected system worldwide was, just small communities that's our goal. Everything's under their control. There is no way other than old systems of barter to do anything after that point. So, I spoke against it before, and a lot of people think it's the bee's knees, Bitcoin, all this stuff. I would say you're actually supporting something. Really learn about that, like the big, huge mine that was under the Three Gorges and all of that. Why do you think that was there? Where do you think all these systems and ideas started? Go back and do your research.
Well, it's very interesting because President Trump has also tweeted a while back about crypto, saying that he's not keen on it. And I'm paraphrasing. He also says that we don't know exactly what it is, and there's nothing safer than gold because the dollar should be the gold standard. And what's the activity around the gold standard?
Yeah, I would go gold and silver because especially silver has certain powerful properties. Gold does too monotomically. It can reseed a planet's atmosphere and clean it completely up in a planet's oceans in just a few days. Silver, even like part of what the liquid in the arm does is to have you be able to be influenced by the 5G and internet linked. So clothing that has actually got silver strands and threads and it helps to block that as well as hats, et cetera. So silver has some very powerful technology stuff that it can be used to help.
Gene, you've just muted your microphone. I wasn't sure if you were still speaking.
Letting you know I'm done talking so you can.
Okay. Now, Donald Trump has also, said that he's very concerned about the devaluation of currencies and that he wants to be on a level playing field so that other countries can compete fairly. Now, when we see currencies around the world like the Vietnam dong and the Iraqi dinar, which is heavily undervalued due to the fact that there are currency manipulators on there that were put there by the Federal Reserve. What does he mean by by level playing field? And what does that mean for those currencies and for people holding those currencies in the Western world? Is that a wealth transfer type of discussion?
That goes to the gold that's missing. A lot of these countries, like the Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, have massive amounts of gold in storage that was taken by the cabal. So if you take that gold and the septillions of dollars that goes from the Vatican Dome, once you get to Albania, they found a tunnel that goes from Albania to Geneva. So as they get that gold relocated, those countries are impoverished, and in that condition, Cambodia, Vietnam, like Cambodia was the premier civilization, which was massively invested in gold and had massive amounts of gold that were passed down all the way to present. Same with Marcos. He took a lot of that gold and sold to the cabal. And then when he was going to use it for his own means, they got rid of him. Same thing in Vietnam. Part of what the war there was about was to get the gold out of there. That was part of what the cabal was doing. Also using men's and women's bodies to put drugs in from the Golden Triangle, literally in the bodies, in the bags, etc. That's a big part of what they were doing. It was also, of course, they make a lot of money by funding both sides in war, plus a lot of loosh, plus, beings that live on that. Plus you have a really open harvest season for getting, who's counting who missing, etc. So if you look at the amount of people that went missing, nobody notices, they say MIA, what does that really mean? And so it goes into a lot of things. But the reason those countries were so impoverished is they were, if you go back and get them back the gold that's in the domes, then they would be very wealthy. It's leveling the playing field and redistributing the wealth that they had that was stolen by them, by the cabal.
I understand it's very hard to find some of these currencies in other parts of the world because it's in Iraq, it's illegal to sell Iraqi dinar in other countries, and the deep state probably are aware of this and they're trying to stop, eliminate the wealth transfer. So if anyone is interested in currencies, I will leave the link below before I forget. So does this mean that people holding currencies like this would become more wealthy in other countries as well, Gene?
Yeah, it means that those currencies, once that gold is relocated, would be gold backed. That means they have strength. That means they get back their original strength they would have had before they were pilfered by the deep state. So it means that, of course, the value of that would not only be stronger and higher, but it would be substantial. It would, by that I mean that it would have gold backing. It has something real backing it, not just like the US dollar is the same thing. The only thing that backs it is the wealth of the people working and how much taxation you can do on the people. And so it's the same reason the stuff in the arm is aimed at the elderly and to reduce those that aren't profitable to the system, so that they're getting the system, because what's it backed by? It's not backed by gold like it's supposed to. It's backed by the worker and by the amount of taxation that can be done. Same thing in those countries. If you get it backed by something real, like Trump's saying with gold, and get out what is the cryptocurrencies backed by, same by people. It's going to be backed by our work as a social credit score. This is the design.
What they want, yeah.
Yeah.
But Trump is a very big fan of the gold standard. And I once asked Alexa, my Alexa, I asked her if who owns or who's in charge of the Federal Reserve, and she says Donald J. Trump, and where that went viral on Telegram and everything. And now you ask Alexa, and they've censored it. They say it's an institution. What are your thoughts about that?
I'd say Mr. T.
Oh, of course, absolutely. Now, and people say, when is this going to happen? But I always say this isn't going to happen under Joe Biden, because then he will get the credit. It would be by design that this would happen under Trump. Correct?
Yeah. And I played a video which was brilliantly done by a young man. It was Biden talking about the stuff, the liquid stuff in the arm. And a famous person goes, "You got it? Are you okay?" The fact that he said that, "Are you okay?" He didn't, he knows the truth. And so if you got, like, if you were like, if like, if your kid was like trying to find out if there's a man in the moon, yeah, and he just goes on and making up words and sounding, and finally the young man at the end goes, "Who's running the country? It certainly isn't this guy." This is exactly true. And so we're looking at a movie, but it has to play out, because this has been planned for over 100 years, and it's a very sophisticated plan with moves, counter moves, etc. Along Sun Tzu's Art of War, and also Miyamoto Musashi's Book of Five Rings. So if you go into those and really understand how that, you're looking where they wrote in the Protocols of the Wise Men of Zion, silent weapons for silent wars, like in Bill Cooper's book, Behold a Pale Horse. This is their game, and this is the White Hats game, counterplay. And so we're watching play counterplay. It's going to be, for most people, it's kind of hard to understand and see it. You got to really learn how to understand and think logically like a chess player, but a 5D chess player. So if I do this, how does that change the timeline? How does that move the timeline? How does that influence because timelines actually, as they change, influence the past too. So that's why I said it's a temporal war also. So there's lots of things it's 5D chess, because moves and counter moves go backwards and forwards on this chess game. And so you're watching things, like we had talked about Tartaria before and all of that. There's all kinds of things in play here. Mandela effect, all kinds of things going on that are changing things back and forth. They're trying to constantly do that. They've been doing that for eons, of using our thoughts, feelings, and emotions through these things like 911 and all of this, so that they're programming how we think, and that develops the future. And what we believe to be true develops the future. Now with things like envisioning and this, like Julie Braun did on Saturday on a Zoom session, that's changing and envisioning, and to understand the scopes of emotions, of what emotions you use. They use negative stuff. So if you look, Rob Mercury in South Africa talking about the realms of human emotion, and most people don't even understand the realms. To understand there's levels of emotion we haven't even been told about. Like, we go from the very positive love of God, love of your children, your wife, your dogs, etc. And then you go to, happy and joyful, blissful, and you go down to kind of semi-okay, to bored, to apathetic, to a little upset, to very upset, to angry, to terrified, to fearful. Well, below that, there's another realm that this is where they dwell. And this is how they've been manipulating us in the lower realms through fear and terror, where they live down in realms of human ownership and absolute control and absolute lust and power and greed, that's beyond, where they look at us like we're just nothing but a tool and something to use to throw away when you're done with it, and recycle it and you're done. These realms of emotion. So they're creating from there, and we need to create from the very highest realms of love of God and Christ and all of these. So it's changing the timelines into something completely new that we haven't seen on this planet for thousands and thousands of years, to go back to the original system that was created by the one creator of all things, and not their system that's using these very low vibrational frequencies of absolute despotism.
So what does the old system look like to you, if you could paint a picture for the viewers?
Yeah, it's most people can't imagine it. It was a time, we had gotten down in steps to eradicating it completely. So one of the steps was, of course, to get monetary means. You didn't actually have that originally. When you have an absolute plenitude of everything, you don't need it. You actually originally had a system where people did what loved each other, did things for each other. Everything was so plentiful that there was no need for that. And there's a system where when you have such an abundance, because God created everything with an absolute abundance, because God's infinite, everything was created that way, us included. So when you have that, the only thing that is truly of value is what you can do for others and how you can help, to increase the flow and gifting of to everybody throughout everything, and the things of uniqueness you create, like art and music and these things, and the mark you leave behind is not how you've improved. It's how you've improved things, not how much you controlled and manipulated things, but how you've made the world a better place. And so it's a world that we need to get back to and to learn to re-understand completely, whereby we do things for each other because we realize that we're all one, we're all created by one, and everything is based on that system. And so it's a system in which everybody, it learns to be kind, considerate, and respectful, essentially the golden rule. But even way beyond that, where you, in the other places I know of, it's unthinkable to even ever think of doing something that would create another being harmed, because it doesn't even make sense. Like if you look at some of the very isolated tribes, like in the Philippines, the Tasadai, they don't even have certain words for things like hate, and these things are owned because to them the world was an infinite jungle. Imagine if you had infinite food, infinite this. If somebody is upset, they just leave and go away for a while. And if you don't like the person or don't like, you just talk it out, and you understand we're all unique, and you don't, have to like everything about everybody, but we're all part of the humanity of the creator. And so when you realize that and you go back to that type of system, I mean, they don't even have numbers beyond certain, like the high numbers we have. They don't need to, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4 Manzanas in Hawaii, and then plenty of them. Right? You got, plenty of chickens here. So you get back to a system of true value of how we help each other, how we help raise the children, how we teach them, how they learn. And we teach them things that allow them to do that for others as well, not just to be a debt slave for eternity, for their whole life. And, by eternity, I mean, generation after generation. It's just a recycled system where you just work from cradle to grave. You become a productive member of society. What's that supposed to mean? Productive member of society. We're all productive if we're doing what our unique gifting that was given to us by God. We are given these terms and ideas that are totally cabal. It's learning to rethink and relearn how to talk and how to walk and how to move and how to think. Because the trick they did when they came here is they gave us their mind, the mind of a predator, like in Carlos Castaneda that David Icke said, which a predator's mind is morose and morbid, but fearful that its food will be taken away. Well, that's an idea of a lack again, that there's not enough. There is an abundance of all things, but they made it appear that there's a lack of it's like my father used to tell me, figures don't lie, but liars can figure. So they do this, overpopulation. Well, if you do even 8 billion people, you divide it into the US, divide the US by first, because you have to public property out, and farms and those kind of things. Every human being on earth would actually live on more property than they, about 1/10 of an acre. But most people live in high rises, a lot of big cities and things. They don't live on the whole rest of the world's empty. So you could have all the food production. It's because they're hoarding massive amounts of 99.99999% of everything. And the very, very small portion of the world's population, these elites, are 0.001% of everybody. Then it makes it seem like there's not enough. And they use these math figures, and then they hide the true figures, like the same thing with what's going on the arm, where they're actually lying about if you got it and you died from it, then this is part of how they do it. If you died from it, they've already said this. The CDC allows hospitals to classify the fully stuff in the arm death as unstuff in the arm if it hasn't happened if it happens before the first 14 days or 2 weeks, it won't be classified that way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if the person gets it in their arm and they don't even make it out the door? Well, they're not, okay, that's not a death related to what just happened. Are you kidding me? That's obviously a death. So they change the way we think and the way they classify things. And this is the big trick. And so they're always fudging the numbers, making the numbers say what they want them to say, rather than for people to sit down and use common sense. Does it make sense? Like somebody told me, the face diaper is not for the little tiny critters. It's for water droplets or for droplets. I go, it's waterproof? How do you breathe? But even if it weren't, and it's obviously not, doesn't that aerosolize it go in your lungs? We are not taught to think logically and critically. We're taught to what to think and how to think instead of teaching our children how to think and learn to think critically and logically, and then compassionately and understandingly behave and act, and to really come back to understanding how Creator created all things in plenitude and complete respect for all life.
Absolutely. This is what this war is about. It's a war between good and bad. And this is why they don't like Mr. T, because he speaks truth. The politicians don't like him, and everyone who's sold out their souls to the bad side do not like him. And we want to know what's happening with the recounts. What's happening with that? I believe maybe it's done and they're not ready to reveal it. Well, what do you think?
I believe it's completely done, and they're not yet ready to reveal it until what we're seeing is, all going to be run its course at the same time. It's going to be, it's like when you're in a boxing match or a martial arts match. You're watching the other person to win there at their weakest. Then you pull out all your pieces at the same time. You pull out all your weapons and hit them all at once, and you go for the knockout. This time we have to go for the takeout. It's got to be that way. We can't allow this to grow again and fester and like it has for all these thousands of years. We got to take this out once and for all.
Absolutely. So you're saying that they're probably waiting for the right time to come out. Right. Well, Gene, Decode, it's been an absolute honor to have you on my show. Once again, thank you very, very much. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the viewers before we finish?
Just stay firm and respectful and kind, and get the truth out, and be strong and stand up for the truth, and to realize that we're all created by one God, and that we're all part of that, and that all life is sacred. And God bless each and every one.
Gene Decode, thank you very much. And we'll speak again very soon. God bless you.
God bless. Thank you, Nick.